foundations of sand. The evening air carried the scent of jasmine as Priya Sharma sat cross-legged on her grandmother's faded blue carpet, carefully sketching textile patterns while Vikram Malhotra dozed nearby. This had been their ritual since they were 16. She would create while he kept her company, occasionally offering drowsy compliments on her work. "That one looks like the waves at Juhu Beach," Vikram murmured, his eyes half open as he pointed to the swirling pattern she was shading. "Remember when we snuck out during the monsoon to watch the storm?" Priya smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "We were soaked for hours. My mother was convinced I'd catch pneumonia. 7 years they'd been together. 7 years of growing up side by side in their small town outside Mumbai, their futures seemingly intertwined by both choice and expectation. Their parents had already begun discussing potential wedding dates for after Priya completed her design diploma at the local college. "Professor Mehta wants to submit my portfolio to the International Institute of Design in Paris," she said casually, not looking up from her sketch. She'd been holding this news for 3 days, waiting for the perfect moment. Vikram sat up, fully awake now. "Paris? Why would he do that?" "Because she thinks I have potential." Priya's pencil moved faster, her excitement breaking through. "They only accept 20 students globally each year. It would be a full scholarship." The silence that followed made her finally look up. Vikram's expression had hardened in a way she'd never seen before. His jaw set at an angle that made her stomach tighten. "You're not seriously considering it," he said. A statement rather than a question. Priya set her sketchbook aside. "I am. This is the opportunity of a lifetime, Vikram. To study under masters, to see designs from around the world, to abandon everything we've built," he cut in, standing up. "Your family, our plans, me. It would only be 2 years, she countered, rising to meet his gaze. "We could make it work. Technology exists, Vikram. We could video call and you could visit during holidays. Do you hear yourself? You're talking about dismantling our entire relationship for some fancy foreign degree." His voice had taken on an edge she'd never heard. "Your father was right. Sending you to that arts program changed you. Now you think you're too good for this place." The accusation stung. "That's not fair." "I've never said anything like that." "You didn't have to." Vikram paced the small room, running a hand through his hair. "Everyone knows what happens when people go abroad. They get new ideas, meet new people, forget where they came from." "I'm not everyone," Priya said, her voice growing quieter as his grew louder. "I thought you'd be happy for me." Vikram stopped pacing and looked at her with an expression that made her blood run cold. "Happy that you're choosing some distant dream over what we have, over what we've planned our entire adult lives." He laughed, a hollow sound. "Don't expect me to wait, Priya. You're choosing ambition over love." The words hit like physical blows. Priya felt her eyes sting, but she forced the tears back. "That's not a fair choice to make me take." "Life isn't fair," Vikram said, grabbing his jacket. "My father worked for 30 years at the same textile mill, supporting his family, never once complaining about his dreams. That's what real commitment looks like. So I should just accept whatever life hands me and never reach for more? You should recognize what matters." He was at the door now. "Call me when you've come to your senses. Until then, I have nothing more to say." He left without looking back, the door closing with a decisive click that seemed to echo in the sudden silence of the room. Only then did Priya allow the tears to fall, silent trails down her cheeks as she looked at the half-finished pattern on her page. Waves that now seemed to be drowning the delicate flowers she'd drawn alongside them. Her grandmother found her there an hour later, still staring at the page. "He didn't take it well?" the older woman asked, lowering herself to sit beside Priya. "He gave me an ultimatum. Him or Paris?" Her grandmother took Priya's hand, examining the calluses from years of needlework and drawing. "When I was your age, my father arranged my marriage to your grandfather. The night before the wedding, I received a letter from a women's college offering me a place to study literature." Priya looked up in surprise. "You never told me that." "Because I burned the letter and married your grandfather." Her grandmother's smile was wistful. "He was a good man, and I don't regret our life together. But sometimes, when I read beautiful books, I wonder what words I might have written if I'd made a different choice. She squeezed Priya's hand. There will be many men in this world who will love you, Beta. But opportunities like this come once in a lifetime. That night, Priya made her decision. With trembling hands, she wrote an acceptance email to the International Institute of Design. Then she packed a small bag and walked to Vikram's house, hoping for understanding or at least a proper goodbye. Instead, she found him laughing with friends, already proclaiming his freedom from a girl with her head in the clouds. Priya didn't confront him. She didn't create a scene. She simply turned away, walked back home, and began preparing for her journey, one that would now be unencumbered by false promises and limited expectations. Some foundations, she was learning, were built on sand. Scattered Pieces Paris in autumn was nothing like the travel brochures. The rain seemed perpetual, turning the city into a blur of gray stone and reflective puddles that mirrored the leaden sky. Priya's tiny apartment in the 11th arrondissement had a window that faced another building's brick wall, and the heater worked sporadically at best. C'est normal. Her landlady had shrugged when Priya mentioned it, as if discomfort was simply part of the Parisian experience. The International Institute of Design occupied a renovated textile factory, its industrial windows flooding the workspace with the kind of natural light artists craved. But for Priya, even this felt hollow during those first weeks. She moved through orientation sessions and introductory classes like a ghost, her thoughts constantly drifting back to Mumbai, to the life she'd left behind. Her classmates were intimidating, graduates from prestigious art schools in New York, London, and Tokyo, their portfolios glossy with accomplishments and their conversations peppered with references she didn't understand. In their midst, Priya felt provincial and underprepared, her hand-drawn sketches seeming childish compared to their digital renderings and conceptual designs. Your technique is excellent, but your vision lacks boldness, Professor Lefebvre told her after reviewing her first assignment. You are playing it safe, Mademoiselle Sharma. This institute does not reward safe. At night, alone in her apartment, Priya would check her phone, still half expecting a message from Vikram. Nothing ever came, though her mother reported during their weekly calls that he was doing well and had taken a position at his uncle's export business. The careful way her mother delivered this information told Priya everything she needed to know. Vikram had moved on, perhaps even with someone new. On her lowest night, 3 months into the program, Priya sat on her narrow bed and scrolled through old photos. She found herself pausing on an image of Vikram at her 20th birthday, his arm around her waist, his smile confident as he looked not at the camera, but at her. She remembered how safe she had felt in that moment, how certain of their shared future. You're choosing ambition over love. His words echoed in her memory. And suddenly, sitting alone in a foreign city with rain pattering against her window, Priya felt the full weight of her choice. She had sacrificed certainty for possibility, comfort for growth. Had it been worth it? With a deliberate motion, she deleted the photo, then another, and another, until her phone contained no visual record of their 7 years together. Enough, she whispered to herself. Forward, not back. The next day, Priya arrived at the institute early, before any of her classmates. She set up in the communal workspace and began sketching. Not the safe, traditional patterns she'd been submitting, but something entirely new. She drew from memory, the textures of Mumbai's streets, the collision of ancient and modern in India's fashion landscape, the bold colors of festival celebrations alongside the subdued elegance of temple architecture. By the time others arrived, she had covered her workspace with dozens of sketches, each building on the last, creating a visual language that was uniquely hers. This is unexpected, Professor Lefebvre said when she saw Priya's work. The older woman circled the table slowly, examining each drawing. Where did this come from? Home, Priya said simply, but seen through new eyes. That evening, instead of returning to her apartment, Priya accepted an invitation from Nadia, a Lebanese classmate, to join a group at a small cafe near the Seine. The conversation flowed from design to politics to personal histories, and for the first time since arriving, Priya found herself fully present. engaged in the moment rather than dwelling on what she'd left behind. "To fresh starts," Nadia toasted, raising her glass of wine. "To fresh starts," Priya echoed, and meant it. The winter term brought a collaborative project with a Parisian fashion house. Priya's team was assigned to create a capsule collection blending traditional handcraft techniques with contemporary silhouettes. When she hesitantly shared her Mumbai-inspired sketches, her teammates were enthusiastic. "This perspective is exactly what the project needs," Tomas, their team leader, declared. "Something authentic that hasn't been filtered through a Western lens." The collection they created, featuring Priya's patterns, hand-block printed on luxurious French fabrics, caught the attention of not just their instructors but the fashion house's creative director. After their presentation, he approached Priya directly. "Your understanding of how traditional techniques can speak to modern consumers is remarkable," he said, handing her a business card. "We have an internship program. I would like to see your application." That night, Priya wrote a long email to her grandmother, describing the day's triumph in detail. As she typed, she realized she hadn't thought about Vikram once during the entire project. The realization didn't bring the pain she might have expected, just a quiet acknowledgement that scattered pieces could form new patterns. Spring arrived in Paris, transforming the gray city into a canvas of green and pink as trees blossomed along the boulevards. Priya moved to a slightly larger apartment with a tiny balcony where she could sit and sketch as the city woke each morning. Her internship at the fashion house had evolved into a part-time position, and her designs were beginning to appear in their seasonal collections. Small elements at first, but growing in prominence. "You're different," her mother observed during a video call. "More," I don't know how to say it. "More myself," Priya supplied, and her mother nodded, understanding. When the International Institute announced a prestigious competition for graduating students, with the prize being seed funding for a business venture, Priya submitted a proposal for a design studio that would bridge European luxury techniques with Indian artisanal traditions. The judges were impressed by her vision of ethical fashion that honored cultural heritage while creating contemporary pieces. When they announced her as the winner, Priya felt no desire to share the news with anyone from her past. This victory belonged solely to the woman she had become, a woman who had gathered her scattered pieces and assembled them into something stronger than before. The architect of fortune 4 years after leaving Mumbai, Priya stood in the sunlight-filled studio of Indigo Bridge, her design atelier in Paris's Marais district. Around her, a team of 6 artisans and designers worked on pieces for their upcoming collection, their hands moving with practiced precision over fine silks and hand-loomed cotton. The buyer from Galleries Lafayette called again. Sonia, her business partner, announced as she entered with 2 coffee cups. "They want exclusivity on the embroidered evening wear line." Priya accepted the coffee with a smile. "Tell them we're flattered, but maintaining our independence. We can offer them first selection, but not exclusivity." Sonia arched an eyebrow. "That's a lot of money to walk away from. It's not walking away, it's negotiating from strength." Priya moved to a workstation where a craftsman was applying delicate Zardozi embroidery to a midnight blue jacket. "Besides, exclusivity would mean breaking our commitments to the smaller boutiques that supported us from the beginning." This was the philosophy that had come to define Indigo Bridge in the European market: unwavering commitment to ethical practices, fair compensation for artisanal work, and business relationships built on mutual respect rather than exploitation. It hadn't been easy establishing these principles, especially in an industry notorious for prioritizing profit over people, but Priya had been stubborn. "You get that look sometimes?" Sonia observed, sipping her coffee. "Like you're fighting ghosts." Priya smoothed the fabric beneath her fingers. "Not ghosts, just old lessons." The truth was, Vikram's dismissal had become the foundation upon which she'd built her business ethos. His belief that ambition and love were mutually exclusive had transformed into Priya's determination to create a company where creative ambition and care for others coexisted harmoniously. That afternoon, Priya led a video conference with the workshop she'd established in Mumbai, where 30 local artisans created textiles using traditional techniques, block printing, bandhani tie-dye, and handloom weaving that formed the foundation of her collections. The workshop was managed by her cousin Deepak, who had surprised everyone with his business acumen and commitment to preserving craftsmanship. "The new indigo dye process is working beautifully," Deepak reported, holding up a length of fabric to the camera. The deep blue cloth featured subtle variations in tone that mass production could never replicate. "And the solar panels are finally installed, so we're operating on clean energy for most production." "Perfect timing," Priya nodded. "The sustainability certification comes up for review next month." After the call, Priya opened her laptop to review the quarterly financials. Indigo Bridge had grown steadily, with profit margins that industry veterans had called impossible for a company with their ethical commitments. Proving them wrong had been one of Priya's quieter satisfactions. A notification appeared on her screen, an email from Vogue India requesting an interview for their Diaspora Innovators issue. Priya hesitated before accepting. She had deliberately maintained a low profile in Indian media, focusing on building her reputation in Europe first. But perhaps it was time to become more visible in her home country. "They want to do the photo shoot in Mumbai," she told Sonia later. "I think I'll extend the trip to include some time with my family." Sonia gave her a knowing look. "You haven't been back in what, 3 years?" "4, Priya admitted. "It's been easier to fly my parents here than to go back." The unspoken question hung in the air. Easier for whom? Priya had never explicitly told Sonia about Vikram, but her business partner was perceptive enough to sense that Priya's reluctance to return home stemmed from more than just a busy schedule. The following month, Priya found herself stepping off a plane at Mumbai's international terminal, the familiar wall of heat and humidity enveloping her despite the terminal's air conditioning. Her parents waited beyond the security gates, her mother crying openly at the sight of her only daughter. "Look at you," her father said, holding her at arm's length after a crushing hug. "Paris has made you so sophisticated," Priya laughed. "It's just a better haircut, Baba." But she knew what he meant. She moved differently now, spoke with a quiet confidence that hadn't existed before. The painful shyness that had once characterized her interactions with strangers had been replaced by a composed self-assurance. The Vogue interview took place in a restored heritage building in Kolaba, the photographer capturing Priya among textiles from her workshop, a deliberate choice to highlight the artisan's work alongside her own. The journalist, a sharp-eyed woman named Tanvi, asked thoughtful questions about Priya's journey from local design student to international entrepreneur. "Your success story is remarkable," Tanvi said as they concluded. "But I'm curious. What made you decide to build your primary business in Paris rather than Mumbai? Many designers do the opposite, starting abroad and then returning to establish themselves in India." Priya considered her answer carefully. "Sometimes you need distance to gain perspective. I needed to understand my culture from the outside before I could authentically represent it in my work. It wasn't the full truth, but it wasn't a lie either. Distance had indeed given her clarity, not just about design, but about herself and what she wanted from life." During her 2-week stay, Priya reconnected with old friends, many now married with children. They marveled at her stories of Paris fashion weeks and collaborations with luxury brands, while she listened to their accounts of local politics and family dramas with genuine interest. No one mentioned Vikram directly, though Priya could sense them carefully avoiding the subject. It was her grandmother who finally broached it, on an evening when they sat together on the rooftop terrace, watching the sunset paint Mumbai's skyline in gold and pink. "He married Neha Kapoor last year," the old woman said without preamble. "They're expecting a baby in the summer." Priya nodded, surprised by her own lack of reaction. "I hope they're happy. Are you?" her grandmother asked, her gaze direct and unflinching. "Yes," Priya answered, and realized with some wonder that it was entirely true. "I am." That night, As she packed for her return to Paris, Priya found herself contemplating expansion. Indigo Bridge had reached a point where international growth made sense, and the enthusiastic reception she'd received during this visit suggested that the Indian market was ready for her unique approach to fashion. Maybe it's time to come full circle, she murmured to herself, and began sketching ideas for an Indigo Bridge boutique in Mumbai. Returning tides. Commercial real estate in Mumbai is absolutely insane right now. Deepak's voice crackled through Priya's phone as she walked along the Seine. Early morning sunlight glinting off the river. But I think I've found the perfect location for the flagship store. Priya pulled her light jacket closer against the spring breeze. Tell me, Bandra, that old colonial building on Waterfield Road that used to be a British officers' club. It's been renovated but maintains all the original architectural details. High ceilings, those amazing arched windows, central courtyard. Expensive, but a statement. Priya stopped walking, trying to picture the building. Isn't that near... Yes, Deepak cut in, knowing exactly what she was asking. It's about 3 blocks from Vikram's uncle's export office. But Priya, you can't make business decisions based on avoiding one person in a city of 20 million. He was right, of course. Over the past 7 years, Priya had transformed from a heartbroken design student into the CEO of a rapidly growing international brand. Indigo Bridge now had ateliers in Paris and Madrid, with stockists in 27 countries. The planned Mumbai location would be their most ambitious project. Yet not just a retail space, but a design center that would showcase India's textile heritage to the world. Send me the details, she decided. I'll fly out next month to see it. As she continued her walk, Priya reflected on how circular life could be. When she'd left Mumbai, she'd been running from limited expectations. Now she was returning by choice, on her own terms, with resources and vision that her younger self could never have imagined. The Mumbai flagship project quickly became all-consuming. Priya assembled an international team. Architects from Mexico City, interior designers from Stockholm, lighting specialists from Tokyo, to work alongside local craftspeople. The concept evolved into something more comprehensive than a simple boutique. The ground floor would house the retail space, the second floor a gallery showcasing traditional textile techniques, and the top floor a studio where local designers could work and collaborate. It's a love letter to Indian craftsmanship, Priya explained during a planning meeting in Paris, and a bridge between traditions that are thousands of years old and contemporary global design. 4 months later, Priya relocated temporarily to Mumbai to oversee the final stages of construction and preparation. She took an apartment in Juhu, deliberately choosing a neighborhood far from Bandra and her old haunts. This wasn't about avoiding the past, she told herself, but about creating space for the future. The city had changed in the years she'd been gone. New highways cutting through familiar landscapes, gleaming towers rising where markets had once stood. But the essential character remained, the chaotic energy, the resilience, the collision of ancient and cutting edge that had always inspired her work. As the opening date approached, local media caught wind of the project. Indigo Bridge had grown famous enough internationally that its arrival in Mumbai was considered noteworthy, and Priya found herself fielding interview requests from fashion blogs, business magazines, and cultural programs. This feels different from the Paris opening, she confessed to Sonia during a late-night call. More personal somehow. Because it is personal, Sonia replied simply. You're not just opening a store, you're coming home. The observation lingered with Priya as she finalized details for the grand opening event. Unlike the intimate, industry-focused gathering they'd held in Paris, the Mumbai launch would be more public, a celebration not just of the brand, but of the artisanal traditions that had inspired it. 2 weeks before the opening, while reviewing the guest list with her local PR team, Priya came across a familiar name, Vikram Malhotra, now listed as CEO of Malhotra Global Exports. He's influential in the luxury goods export sector, explained Rohan, her PR director. His company handles distribution for several international brands in South Asia. Priya maintained her composure, though her heart had accelerated slightly. I know who he is. Should we remove him from the list? Rohan asked, sensing something in her tone. Priya considered the question carefully. Part of her, a small wounded part that still existed despite all her growth, wanted to say yes. But the woman she had become recognized the pettiness of such a gesture. No, she decided. Keep him on the list. This event is about celebrating Indian craftsmanship and design. Anyone who appreciates that is welcome. The night before the opening, Priya walked alone through the completed space. The building had been transformed into something magical. Ancient wooden beams contrasting with sleek display cases, traditional jolly screens casting intricate shadows from contemporary lighting. Throughout the space, giant photographs showed the hands of artisans at work, weathered fingers manipulating threads, palms smoothing fabric, knuckles gripping carving tools. We did it, she whispered to herself, to the space, to the memory of the girl who had once been too afraid to leave home. In the central courtyard, a massive installation hung from the ceiling, hundreds of pieces of indigo-dyed fabric in varying shades of blue, arranged to create the impression of waves. It moved slightly with the evening breeze, a living, breathing artwork that embodied the name and spirit of her brand. As she stood beneath it, Priya felt a profound sense of completion. Whatever happened tomorrow, whether Vikram attended or not, whether the Mumbai fashion elite embraced her vision or rejected it, she had built something true to herself. Something that honored both ambition and love for craft, for heritage, for beauty. That night, she slept more peacefully than she had in years. The unspoken victory. The morning of Indigo Bridge's Mumbai opening dawned clear and bright, unusual for early monsoon season. Priya took it as a good omen as she performed her pre-event ritual, an hour of meditation followed by a careful review of every detail that might need her attention. By late afternoon, the converted colonial building hummed with activity. Staff made final adjustments to displays. Caterers arranged elaborate platters of food and drink, and technicians tested the lighting system that would dramatically reveal each section of the space during Priya's welcome speech. The first guests will arrive in 30 minutes, Sonia reminded her, appearing at Priya's office doorway. Are you ready? Priya smoothed the front of her dress. An indigo bridge, original in midnight blue silk with subtle hand embroidery at the neckline and cuffs. The design was simultaneously Indian and international, traditional and modern, much like the woman wearing it. Ready? She confirmed, though her stomach fluttered with anticipation. The event began precisely at 7, the courtyard filling rapidly with Mumbai's fashion elite, international buyers, journalists, and influential figures from the design world. Priya moved through the crowd with practiced ease, greeting guests, accepting congratulations, and directing attention to the artisans she had invited, the true creators whose hands had made her vision possible. She was in conversation with a French fashion editor when she felt it. A shift in the energy of the room, a prickle of awareness at the back of her neck. Turning slightly, she saw him standing near the entrance. Vikram Malhotra had aged well, she noted with detached interest. His face had matured from boyish good looks into something more refined, and his bearing suggested the confidence of a successful businessman. He wasn't alone. A woman in an elegant sari stood beside him, her hand resting on a visibly pregnant belly. Their eyes met across the crowded space. Vikram's expression shifted from casual interest to recognition, then to something more complex, surprise, perhaps, or reassessment. Priya offered a small, polite nod before returning her attention to the French editor, continuing their conversation without missing a beat. Later, as she prepared to give her welcome speech, Priya found herself surprisingly calm. The nervous anticipation she might have expected at the prospect of publicly speaking with her ex-lover in attendance had been replaced by a solid certainty in her own accomplishments. She ascended the small platform in the center of the courtyard, beneath the flowing indigo installation. The crowd quieted as spotlights illuminated her figure. "Welcome to Indigo Bridge," she began, her voice steady and warm. 7 years ago, I left India with nothing but a scholarship and a dream. Today, I return with a vision that has been shaped by both distance and connection. a vision of fashion that honors heritage while embracing innovation. As she spoke about the journey that had led to this moment, Priya allowed her gaze to travel across the gathered faces, including briefly Vikram's. There was no anger in the glance, no lingering resentment, just acknowledgement of a shared past that had led to different futures. "This space is more than a store," she continued. "It is a celebration of the hands that create beauty from raw materials. It is a testament to the belief that tradition and progress are not opposing forces, but complementary energies. And most importantly, it is proof that one need never choose between ambition and connection, that the most meaningful success embraces both." After the speech, as guests explored the newly revealed spaces, Priya circulated through the crowd, accepting congratulations and explaining design details. She was discussing fabric sourcing with a buyer from New York when a familiar voice spoke from behind her. "Impressive what you've built, Priya." She turned to find Vikram standing alone, a flute of champagne in his hand. His wife was visible across the room, engaged in conversation with another guest. "Thank you," Priya replied, her tone professional but not cold. "Congratulations on your success as well. And your family," she added with a glance toward his wife. "Neha," he supplied. "And thank you. We're expecting a daughter in August." An awkward silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken history. Finally, Vikram cleared his throat. "I was wrong," he said simply. "What I said to you all those years ago, about having to choose." Priya studied him, noting the discomfort beneath his confident exterior. "Yes, you were," she agreed without rancor. "But in a way, I'm grateful. That moment clarified exactly what kind of life I wanted to build." Vikram's expression registered surprise at her candor. "No regrets, then?" "None that matter anymore." She smiled slightly. "Life has a way of taking us where we need to go, even when the path seems unclear at the time." "Your speech mentioned tradition and innovation as complementary forces," he observed. "Is that what you found? A way to balance opposing pulls?" "I've found that most perceived oppositions are false dichotomies," Priya replied. "Ambition and love, tradition and innovation, east and west. The real art is in weaving them together into something stronger than either could be alone." She gestured to the indigo waves installation above them. Like these pieces of fabric, individually beautiful, but together, transcendent. A staff member approached, apologetically interrupting to inform Priya that a prominent fashion blogger was eager to interview her about the collection. "I should go," Priya said to Vikram. "Enjoy the evening." As she turned to leave, Vikram spoke once more. "For what it's worth, I've followed your career, your collections, your interviews. What you've created, it's extraordinary." Priya paused, considering his words. "Ambition and love can coexist," she said quietly, "just not with the wrong person." With that, she walked away, moving confidently through the space she had created, not as a weapon of revenge, but as a testament to possibility. Around her, hundreds of guests admired textiles and designs that would never have existed had she made a different choice 7 years ago. Later that night, after the last guest had departed and only the core team remained, Priya stood alone in the courtyard, gazing up at the indigo waves. Sonia found her there, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. "To a successful opening," she toasted, passing 1 glass to Priya. "To becoming who we were meant to be," Priya countered, clinking her glass against Sonia's. They sipped in companionable silence before Sonia asked, "Was it difficult?" "Seeing him again?" Priya considered the question. "Less than I expected. It was like meeting a character from a book I read long ago, familiar, but no longer particularly relevant to the story I'm living now." "And what's the next chapter of that story?" Sonia inquired. Priya smiled, her gaze traveling over the space she had created, this beautiful bridge between worlds that had once seemed impossibly far apart. "I'm not sure yet," she admitted, "but for the first time in a long while, I feel completely free to write it exactly as I choose." Outside, the first monsoon rain of the season began to fall, its gentle rhythm on the roof like quiet applause for a performance well rendered. Priya raised her glass to the sound, to the night, to the journey that had brought her home not as the girl who had left, but as the woman she had always had the potential to become.